What's up, guys? I'm Chris, and today you're watching a book review on Prodigy Peak by Fränz. Welcome to the channel, and thanks for tuning in. Please consider subscribing. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment on any questions that you have about the product I'm reviewing or anything you'd like to see in the future. Let me know your thoughts. Also, don't forget to click that notification bell so you don't miss a video or a review. Don't forget to head over to Facebook and join the Chris Edwards Magic Secret Access group. In there, I will be posting direct links to unlisted videos that can't be found visibly on the channel or through a YouTube search or any search engine for that matter. What's going to happen with the unlisted videos is, for example, with certain wallets that don't give you a lot of information in the ad copy or in the trailer or even in the description, I'm going to show you guys where the peaks are, how they work, things like that. So it's borderline exposure in the sense that I don't want to present these publicly to lay people, but I think that if you are here, then you're likely a magician or a mentalist. There are some questions to answer to get into the group. So basically, if we know each other or we have mutual friends, certain groups in common, then it's going to be no problem. You're going to get in. But check that out because there will be a lot of unlisted videos that I think will be worth seeing. Prodigy Peak is a 74-page booklet with a wealth of information, an amazing peak, and a number of phenomenal working routines that I can't honestly speak highly enough about. Not only are you going to learn an amazing peak that is extremely easy to do, looks completely innocent, has the best motivation and justification that I've heard, and it's virtually angle proof. You get 100% full peak, and you don't even really have to handle the cards much at all. I should also mention here that the methods themselves are not original to Fränz, in the sense that if you're experienced in mentalism, then just don't expect any groundbreaking new principles or concepts. Fränz does a very good job of crediting those where credit is due. So even though the methods and the principles themselves may not be original to Fränz, I think the way that he has structured the routines and combined the methods and principles makes this new, or at least unique and original. So when it comes to justification on having your participant write a thought down, a lot of the time in reviews you'll hear that the justification is good, or you'll hear mentalists say that the justification is good. But with this and with Fränz, the justification that Fränz has come up with for putting a thought to paper, or billet in this case, is not only good, but it actually enhances the routines, it enhances the performance. So this goes beyond good. And then the motivation for getting the peak, there really is no motivation, in the sense that there's such misdirection that when you're getting your peak, there's no heat on your stack or anything. Like if you watched other reviews on the Prodigy Peak, you know that we can't go into too much detail without exposing method, but all I can say is that both the justification and the motivation is the best that I have come across. Now, you may have heard that other reviewers have said that this is a more of a peak system, which I agree with. You have your peak, which isn't something new to the mentalism world, but this combined with another principle really makes this stand out, and I think the two combined make this one of the best resources of information that I've come across in a long time. What do you get? So it costs $35. You can pick this up at Penguin Magic. You're going to get a 74-page book. Now I'm going to show you a page that doesn't give anything away, just so I can kind of show you the layout of the book. It's a quick read. It took me about an hour and a half. I'm not that fast of a reader. It might take you less, it might take you a little longer, but honestly, once I started reading, I couldn't put the book down. The quality on the book, the physical quality of it is really good. Now, the quality of the contents inside and the information is unreal. Unreal. Like I said, I couldn't put this book down. It was extremely easy to read. Everything was crystal clear as far as understanding both the method and the routines. Between all the justifications, the motivation, the peak itself, as we go through the contents of the book, I will try to give as much information as I can while keeping the secret completely safe. Okay, so for tutorial, since this is a book, it doesn't really apply because this is your tutorial. Okay, so let's kind of go over the contents. The first chapter, 14 pages, is going to talk to you about the peak itself, how to get your justification, your motivation for the peak, how to get your peak. Mind you, it's a full peak, and for most of your presentation, this is going to be hands-off. Okay, so it goes over that. There's a ton of good information in there. There's a little bit of arts and crafts, but this isn't, I'm not going to call this a gimmick because it's not. This is what it'll look like. That's it. That's what it'll look like. Between your participant writing down information and you getting your peak, at some point they will place a card in the stack of billets. You can throw the rest of the cards on top. It's buried. There's no breaks. There's nothing to hold. You can set the cards down on the table, and then you can come back to get your peak whenever you feel ready. But like I said, the motivation for it not only is there and justified, but it enhances the overall routine because this is not just a single phase routine. Even in the bare bones basic first routine, where you're just doing the Prodigy Peak, this is a multi-phase routine that combines 2 or more spectators. Now you can do this with one. But it will appear much bigger if you use 2 or more. Fränz states that he has used this for, I believe, 8 years as his EDC in close-up, working gigs. It's working material. All of this is working material. However, when I read through this, I pictured myself performing each routine in a stage setting because that's how big that this can all play. So not only does it work for an EDC walk around close-up setting, but this will work for parlor, stage. It doesn't matter the environment or the situation. This applies to everything. So like I said, the Prodigy Peak, the routine in there is designed best with 2 spectators. And then the next chapter is called Prodigy Peak X+1. And this one plays even bigger because you are going to read 3 people's minds. This uses another principle that is well known in mentalism. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm not exposing anything in this review. I can say that I can't speak highly enough, but I can't give too much information. And then you have Prodigy Prediction. And this is really an amazing routine. There's some phases in there that are similar to the first routine. Like all of these routines are based around the Prodigy Peak and the original routine. But then with this one, with the prediction, ultimately you read one participant's mind and then another one who has written down a thought, or you are able to then show that you have predicted their thought in advance by bringing out an envelope and showing what's inside to be exactly what they had written down. After that, you have a couple pages that talk about multiple outs and luck. I like this chapter here. Now, I don't want this to come across by the name for it to sound like any of this is not surefire, because it is. You will get your hits 100% every time. But he does speak on multiple outs and luck in where you can incorporate multiple outs in certain ways where in the end it can make your prediction or your reveal that much stronger, but it's only gonna apply if it applies, if that makes any sense. It's not something that's necessary for this to work by any means. It's gonna work 100% of the time, but if your participant chooses or comes up with certain things, then there are ways to make the revelation bigger, more powerful, but again, it's not something that's required to perform any of this. Next, we have half and half Prodigy, which combines the original system with a force, and it allows you to enhance your presentation because you can go into a more detailed or bigger revelation because you know in advance something that's going to happen. After that, we have Prodigy Thought Transmission. Now, this is part spectator becomes the mentalist and part PK touch, which is really cool. So this is a multi-phase routine where there's going to be you as the mentalist reading the participant, or not only reading the participant, but feeling their thoughts in a way. And then things are going to turn around. You're going to allow them to become the mentalist. And then another participant, between the two of them, they're going to transmit a thought and a feeling amongst one another. And then finally, Fränz shares another routine called bucket list, which is very interesting. It's a really fun routine, and it actually doesn't incorporate the Prodigy Peak at all in this. It's just something that he decided to share, almost like a bonus routine or effect that uses a different principle that's very easy to use, and combined with the idea of a bucket list and the revelation that he suggests or recommends, or just the idea that he has, is actually really, really cool. So like I've mentioned, and other reviewers who have reviewed this book have mentioned, it is difficult to describe the peak and any of the routines in detail, just because that would tip methods. Basically, without exposing anything, you have your participant take a blank card, and they're going to write down a thought. You're going to have another participant take part, and this incorporates the second principle of the overall effect. They're going to become a part of the original routine. As they're looking over something, you come back, you have your participant put their card back in here. The rest of the cards go on top. It can be dribbled just as a convincer to show that you're not holding any breaks. Not that a layperson is going to know what a break is or anything like that. And then the cards can be set down. And then you come back, you would have your other participant place back their card, and then you will reveal each person's thought. Now, as far as difficulty level, the peak itself could not be easier to do. Not only the handling, but in getting your peak. It couldn't be easier. And you're going to get a full peak 100% of the time. You're able to burn the peak if you want to. Like, you can stare at it because you have that much misdirection that's right in front of them. To call it misdirection is almost the wrong term, because you're not even misdirecting them. You can do the peak right in front of them. It's virtually angle proof. Setup and reset. So there is a one-time setup. This will involve some arts and crafts, but again, that's pushing it. It hardly involves arts and crafts. It's extremely easy to make. There's also an alternative. So in the contents, I didn't mention this, but there is an alternative handling and an alternative way to make this work. That's a little bit easier, but I went with the original just because I like the original handling better, but it's really personal preference. So one involves a little bit more arts and crafts, and then the other one involves a couple seconds of work as far as arts and crafts go. So you're either looking at minutes, or with the alternate handling, seconds. I'm not even kidding. It's simple. And then reset is almost instant. You're just going to basically reset your stack of billets. It'll take a cut. This is an afterthought, that's why I'm in different clothing, but I should also mention I'm personally just going to use blank billets with this. But if you don't have blank billets and you have business cards, this will work with the business cards that you already have. You just have to do something to make it work, just as you would have to do with the billets. With that said, there's also the option of having this done for you. And that's all I can say. If you don't want to put in the minutes, or the time that it's going to take to make this work, it can be done for you. That'll make sense if you read the book. Can it be inspected? So honestly, this is just going to be a stack of billets to your participant. At one point, they are going to be not necessarily handling them, but they are going to be able to see them as they are. They'll be sitting on the table out in the open. There's really no heat on the stack of billets. And when you're done obtaining your peak and information, like ideally you would just throw a rubber band around them and put them away. Just get rid of them, out of sight, out of mind. Throughout the presentation and performance, like I don't think that there's any heat on this at all. So there's really no need for inspection or examination or for them to handle anything. It's so fair that there should never be any suspicion on any of this. Pocket space. There's your pocket space right there. This can be done actually if you want to cut it in half. That can be your pocket space, right? This can be done with half of what I have here. I would do it with this many billets. I'm not going to say how many's there, but I would do it with that many just because I think that gives more variety in a sense. Again, you'll understand if you purchase this. It gives more variety, but it's still, it looks normal, right? It just looks like a stack of cards. It's not big and bulky. I also think that the handling would be a bit easier if you're using about this many, but pocket space, it's minimal for sure. Is it a worker and who would use this? So this is definitely going to become one of my everyday carries. It's a simple stack of billets. There's nothing more to it. Okay, like after your one-time setup, the lifespan of your stack of billets is going to be as long as a stack of billets would last you. You know, and it's not like if these get old or weathered or damaged, it's not going to make it so that they can't be used and it needs to be redone. That's all going to be dependent on your performance environment and stuff. I mean, obviously, if you're performing corporate or kind of more formal events, then you're going to want to have nice clean looking billets, right? But if you're doing this as part of your everyday carry, doing strolling or table hopping or street, anything like that, this is gonna last you forever. So the peak, your stack of billets, and all the information in here, it's all working material. This is definitely a worker. It's gonna go into my EDC, it's going to go into my strolling, it's going to go into my close-up, it's going to go into my stage. Yeah, it's a worker. All of it is. Who would use this? Obviously the mentalist. That's really all there is to say on that. Is this worth the money? So like I mentioned, this is $35. Is it worth it? In being 100% honest with you, between the method, the principles, the ideas, Fränz justification, and then the different routines in here, it's worth so much more than that. Honestly, it's worth so much more than that. You're getting a complete steal with this at $35. Now, from my understanding, this is kind of flying under the radar, which is good for those who have it, but it's a shame for those who don't. And for Fränz, who is generous enough to release this. So honestly, if you are a mentalist or you are getting into mentalism, it really doesn't matter. I would highly recommend picking this up. I can't stress that enough. Positives and negatives. So first, I'm going to start with the negatives. One of the negatives being that I can't give you a lot of information on this. All I can do is tell you that it is 110% worth it, and that in reading this, I was glued to this book. I got so much out of this. When it comes to books, I'll usually take what I can and leave the rest type thing. Take what I like or what suits my style, what catches my attention. A lot of the time in the books that I read, whether they're magic books or mentalism books, the information in there is great, but there's only a number of things that usually kind of spark and where I go, oh, I'm going to use that. Whereas in this, I honestly see myself using everything in here, from the bare bones original routine and peak to, you know, some of the other routines where I could see them being played huge. Now, there is a number of principles that are involved with the routines. So you're not just going to have your peak. This could very well just be a peak, but you are not going to get the most out of it in just using the mechanics or handling to get your peak. So there is another principle involved in just with the original routine that will require some memory work. So like I said, that part has nothing to do with the peak itself, but if you want to get the most out of this, then it will require some memory work. Now, the way that Fränz has kind of explained things in here and set this up, the memory work is very minimal, and it will play huge. It will be 100% worth it. It won't take you long. It won't take you long. It reminds me of mnemonics. Don't let that scare you off, because I know, like, when you think mnemonics, a lot of us think mnemonica, like a stacked deck of 52 cards. It's nothing like that. So I just mean mnemonics in the sense that the memory work is very easy to commit to your memory using the method that Fränz has incorporated into this. So not really a negative, but just something that I wanted to point out, because even though I can't give away much information in this review, I don't feel like I would be giving an honest review if I didn't mention that there is a little bit of memory work. So I wouldn't want you to pick this up thinking you're just going to get a peek and then realize that there's a little bit of memory work with this to get the most out of it. To give this justice, you're going to want to memorize a few things. Positives, I've mentioned so many already, but the justifications, the motivations, the peak itself, the timing, the misdirection, and again, misdirection's not even a good word for this, but all of those. And then the routines, the ideas, the thoughts, there's it's incredible, honestly. It can't be more innocent than this. Honestly, it's a number of single billets that are laid out in the open. There's more to it, or there wouldn't be a method, but there's really not much more to it. And that's all your participants gonna see is this. That, combined with the fact that for most of the routine, this is going to be hands off, takes all the heat away from any of this. With the combined methods and principles to make this work, there's really no way that your participant can backtrack and figure this out. There's been a lot of thinking and experience that has gone into this before being released. It's all so good. So I know that this has been a vague review where essentially you're just kind of listening to me ramble and not getting a ton of information. Trust me, pick this up, read it. It doesn't take long. You will love it. You will use it. And you will also understand why, as reviewers, we can't give away too much without tipping the method. And if you pick this up, not only will you be thankful that you did, but you'll be thankful that there hasn't been a lot of information or description given out in any of these reviews. I think that's about all I can say about Prodigy Peak, but again, go pick this up. I will leave a link in the description below. You'll be happy you did. I mean, all I can give you is my word, but I'm being completely honest with you. I'm going to use everything in here. And like I said, whether that's EDC, walk around, close up to stage, I'm going to use this. And it's absolutely amazing. So thank you, Fränz, for releasing this. This is his first international release. He's been releasing material in Germany for the last 10 years. So he's not new to this. He's just new to the international market. And I think that this going under the radar is a real shame for those who may not have heard of it or aren't giving it the chance and picking this up, because you will get your money's worth. It's honestly, it's such a bargain at the price. So check it out. And with that, we'll see you at the next review.